Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today is February the 8th, 2023. And so exciting to start the call. And I've got this masculine energy here with us. So how awesome. I'm so glad to have you with us, Christo and Scott. And Scott, we shall connect. Because I know you mentioned to me you also are in Colorado, so we will connect. I'm still getting myself settled. I'm not there yet. I'm still staying at my daughter's house, and we even share one room. So we are here, just adjusting and ebbing and flowing and doing the best that we can to be as comfortable as possible, while at the same time making a 20-month-old priority. 22-month-old, because he's going to be two years old in April. So time is ticking away. It's moving quickly. But anyhow, Miss Donna, so good to have you here. So exciting to have you here with us. Yay, so good to
so good to see you guys. Yeah.
So awesome. Well, it is I was just sharing that I am still, I've been here two weeks in Colorado, but I am nowhere near settled until I have my own space and I can have my own bedroom, my own bathroom, and a place where no little hands move my stuff. I won't be settled. So, but for now, I am so grateful that I made this, and it's not that I even made a decision. In my class last night, I teach a 1-year long, I call it a mastery class. Donna, you've been in that class. And that kind of a class, this year's group, our students have been students of mine for quite a while. And also they are students of A Course in Miracles. We've gone through we're in the 3rd book that is channeled by Jesus. Pretty much everybody that starts with me starts with A Course in Miracles because that's foundational. From there, I take them to A Course of Love, which is Jesus continuing the teachings. Course of Love is really more about why you want to choose love only. Course in Miracles teaches a lot about the difference between love and fear, between the two voices. Without the foundation of A Course in Miracles, in my opinion, to be able to go to A Course of Love or the Way of Mastery becomes a little bit more challenging unless you have had real good training on what the ego is, even from other teachings, because they are out there, especially teachings that tend to be Buddhist in nature. They tend to really enter into dialogue about the ego, explaining the way the mind works, because without an understanding of how our mind works, we cannot transcend that which has us stuck in a dimension of misinformation. And what I mean by a dimension is our mind is, when I say our mind, it doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to me. We are all accessing one mind. There's only one consciousness. There's only one intelligence. We make use of it individually through our conditioning. We interpret the world and make use of this intelligence. However, when the ego gets hold of it, when we operate in victim consciousness, when we operate in disempowerment and in limitation, we are misusing the mind, because the mind, the intelligence, seeks to expand, seeks to take what is into other realms, because it is infinite. It is always expanding. The ego is a contraction, is a limitation. So once you believe that things are a certain way, you are actually limited in what you believe. So for example, let's take the medical world, just because everybody can understand that. So if you go to let's say a physician, a specialist, and they specialized in, let's say heart heart stuff. And they went through training, and they learned about what to do to maybe do a heart transplant. And they learned that what they actually have done is they have, for a little while, they have expanded and learned something new. But the minute that they know what they know, they have limited what else they don't know. Think about it that way. So they expand themselves and learn something new. And once they have that certification about that particular training, if somebody else discovered something else, but they're not aware of it, and they're talking about what they know, and this is their specialty, and this is how you do heart transplants, 2 seconds later, 2 days later, 2 weeks later, it's going to be outdated. But the mind that believes, well, I know this, is a mind that has expanded a little bit, and then it contracts itself, it limits itself in what is possible. This is the predicament in this world today, that well, I'm going to say all of us expanded our awareness to a certain level, and then we get really righteous about what we know. And this is the only way. This is why the Course in Miracles says you can be right or you can be happy, but you cannot be both. Now, when I have students, usually for the first time, that hear that comment, and they happen to be in a class with me, they tell me, but I'm always happy when I'm right. I say to them, spoken like a true eagle, the eagle loves to be happy, or believes that it is happy when it is right, but that's not real happiness. That righteousness is a form of happiness that makes you feel inflated. True happiness, that the ego is saying, is only possible when you cease giving up being right according to the ego, is a joy that is everlasting. It does not get taken away when you don't know something. It doesn't get taken away when you say, hey, I don't know about that. It's a joy that remains in the heart of one who is an adventurous explorer, one who does not want to, fill their office, their home, their environment with degrees and certifications about what I know and what I've accomplished, because a mind that understands the truth of who we are is one who realizes that there is no way you can possibly ever know all that there is to be known. Therefore, there is no way you can be right about anything. And that mind is the mind of a child, which is one of the reasons why I knew I had to move to Colorado. I had to move here and be with my grandson, sit basically at the feet of this beautiful child who is truly a teacher, the guru that is the perfect guru for me at this time, because he lives in the now moment. He feels what he feels right now. He's not processing, thinking about how he's going to be manipulating things down the road. He is in the now, and all he cares about is what is happening right now, what he wants now. That is such a beautiful process for me, because even though I have worked quite a bit, I've been on this journey for 20 years. I'm going to say that I have been in the mastery phase of my journey now for probably about 10 years. So half of my journey, I've been in the mastery phase. And I see these two phases very, very clearly. And I teach about these two phases, and I consider them two different awakenings. The first one is really, you're becoming aware. You're starting to wake up. You're starting to realize that there's more to life. And in that realization, you begin to discover that you've got to find out, what is this ego all about? So the first part is getting to know the part of your mind that has been blocking truth, has been blocking love, is the obstacle to all that you want to realize. The second part of the awakening which is, to me, where the mastery comes in. Is you already know what the ego is. You know, it's all that limits you. It's all that makes you righteous, makes you judgmental, makes you superior, inferior. It's the part that goes into jealousy. It's the part that compares with others. It's the part that sees the outer world as if it has power over you. Once you have seen that, and you are really clear that all of those thoughts that you have that are egoic based, you learn them from the world. They came to you. They were programmed into you. So that awareness has to happen before you can enter mastery. Mastery is realizing, okay, I'm the master of my mind. So now how do I want to use my mind? Well, the mind, once you understand that the mind, there is one mind, one intelligence, you do not want to use that intelligence on your own, because that would be your ego. You want to use it with God. You want to know, God, how do you want me? What do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? You acknowledge, because it becomes so evident that when the ego's not talking, God is. God is inspiring. God is activating desires, is activating just ideas that connect us with one another, because God is about bringing us together, where the ego is about separation. God is about expanding what is possible for all of us, where the ego is about selfishness and contraction. What can I get? So when we enter the realm of mastery, we are committing to being 100% responsible for everything, excuse me, that we think, everything that we say, everything that we do, because you're constantly, for a while at least, you're constantly making sure that you're operating at the higher frequency of love, which means that when you make a mistake in the beginning, and the oh my goodness. So my journey to break it down, I've been in it 20 years now. So I can break it down into five-year segments. The first 5 years is when I began to realize that there had to be more. My mother had passed away. I was experiencing a lot of grief. I was experiencing depression because of that. I was experiencing, so I've got a little visitor, my little grandbaby coming in. I was experiencing, oh no, it's not my grandbaby, it's my daughter. Didn't even see her there. Experiencing the realization that there had to be more than what I knew. So inside of that, the first 5 years, I was really experiencing a lot of curiosity about what else could be better. So I was comparing my life from what I thought wasn't working to what I thought could be better. That, for most people, would be considered the self-help time. When you're always seeking new ways of doing things, when you are seeking, improving, whatever it is that is possible for you to do. You want to make more money, you want to look better, you want to attract the right partner, you want blah, blah, blah. It's always about getting. The second 5 years, so that the second quarter was about beginning to understand my ego. I began to realize, oh my goodness, so my upbringing, my life experiences, the situations, circumstances that I had with my parents began to inform me about who I was. So my dad wanted a son, and I clearly was not born a son. So maybe today he might have had me operated on and had me given me, all kinds of blockers or whatever, so that I would have turned into a boy. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness, if my dad had his way, I would have been one of those trans kids. Thank God I was born 60 years ago. But anyways, so I began to do the inner work that required me to open up the wounds that had been created when I was a child. Now, these wounds were nothing more than ideas and beliefs that I had, because I was perceiving my parents, I was perceiving the outer world. I was looking at those who had been on this planet longer than me, and they basically were very, very much operating from their egos, and they were very unloving. Here comes the sunshine. It's snowing out there. It's absolutely beautiful watching the snow, but when the sun comes through, it gets pretty intense. Beautiful up here. So I had to go inside and look at my stories about the world, all created when we're children, sometimes in the womb. And that's when I began to realize that I could change my opinion about myself and others. I had no idea I could do that. I had no idea that I really could forgive people if I wanted to. I thought that once you did something and you hurt me, that was it. There was nothing I could do about it. And I realized I can change my mind about anything. I could rewrite the stories in my mind. And it was so liberating realizing I didn't have to believe a single thought that I had. That was what then propelled me to the second half of the journey. That third quarter of the journey, those next 5 years, was a really amazing time. I began to realize that, yes, I had a lot of spiritual truths in my head. I knew the truth. I was teaching the truth. By then, I'd already been teaching for a good 5 years or more. So I enter into that second half, realizing that I'm saying things to my students, to my clients, but am I living it? I realized my walk and my talk had to become congruent. I was, at the time, I had married this just beautiful soul, total soulmate who came to this incarnation as I did to help me move to that next stage. And that next stage is when I began to realize to become aware of my spiritualized ego. I began to recognize you can talk it all you want, but if you don't walk it, you can talk about love, but if you're judging, you can say that you are one with God, but if you're listening to the ego, the talking and the walking, until they come together in alignment, you cannot be in mastery. It's not possible to be in mastery when all you do is talk the talk. So it was a time for me to get clear. It took me a good 5 years, maybe might have been 4, might have been 6. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to go back through my notes, but which I did. I journaled for most of those 20 years. And I began to realize that when the commitment is made to follow only the teachings of God, to really listen to those that have walked the talk, for me, it became very clear. Jesus was the example for me. Now, it became very easy for me to follow the teachings of Jesus because as a little girl growing up Catholic, I heard about Jesus. I already had a love for this gentle soul that I had heard about. But that's when I began to want to understand his teachings, not from what the church taught, but from what really the truth of who he was. I didn't want an interpretation from somebody else because I realized, well, if in the second stage of my journey, I began to discover that I could change my mind and that so much of what I had believed was true was made up by others, made up by myself, I didn't want to know about Jesus from somebody else's interpretation. I wanted to have a personal experience. And as life would have it, the messengers come at the right and perfect time. I had this opportunity to go on a very long trip, went from the USA to, where did I go? I went to Europe, and now I can't remember the country that I went to. We used to travel quite a bit. But anyways, on that particular trip, I took a book with me called The Disappearance of the Universe about A Course in Miracles. And when I was reading The Disappearance of the Universe, I realized I've got to get home and read A Course in Miracles, because that is how I was going to get a real, Jesus was going to show me who Jesus is. And sure enough, I got home and I began to read A Course in Miracles. And that's been the last a little bit over 10 years, about 10, 11 years. And the minute that I began to read A Course in Miracles, I knew I started my mastery program. I went into mastery. I wanted to become a master of my mind, but the only way to be a master of my mind was to open up my heart completely. That meant there could be no judging of others. There could be no thinking I was better than or lesser than others. I had to recognize the equality of all beings. At that time, to help me in my mastery program, my youngest son, who at the time was 14 years old, Spencer, began doing drugs, and I had to to look at what was happening with him from a place of mastery, from walking the talk, not from, I think I know what's best for you because I'm the mother, but from, you are my holy brother. I am going to be in service to you from my heart. I'm going to put my head in service to my heart, but from my heart, I need to listen to the voice for God. God is going to inspire me in what to do to be in service to you. And that was a 5-year journey that nearly, I'm going to say, it's what absolutely solidified for me why A Course in Miracles is so powerful. And it is truly the teachings that set me free. This is why I teach from A Course in Miracles, because I don't know anything else. And I've studied a lot of things that cut to the chase when it came to what was going on with my son, his fears, his reasoning for wanting to do drugs. It was at that time that I began to realize that all of the conditioning that I had as a parent, that what a mother should do, what a parent should do, what we do for our children, what children should do, it came up into my conscious awareness so clearly that as parents, we like to control our children. We want them to behave a certain way, have their lives be a certain way, so that we get to feel good about who we are, because we don't know who we are. We live through other people. That's why the outer world lives through us. That's why the outer world, the government needs us to conform. The medical establishment needs us to conform. The school system needs us to conform. The advertisers want us to conform, to buy what they tell us to buy, so that we believe the things that they want us to believe about ourselves, so we can become lifelong customers of theirs. The whole system that has been created by the ego, because the ego is greedy and selfish, is about getting people hooked on things. And here's my son hooked on things. He's hooked on drugs. And I'm hooked on needing validation of what a good mother I am. And I'm in that process of saying, God, what would you have me do? And I'm listening to the voice of Jesus guiding me through A Course in Miracles and what it is that I needed to do with my son, so that Spencer could feel my love unconditionally as his holy sister, because we were cultivating a holy relationship as taught in the Course. Moved from, I'm mother, your child, you do what I say, to no, we are equals. You're a soul on your own journey, and it is not up to me to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. That is of the ego. Control is of the ego. Freedom is of the soul. So it was about finding out, why are you doing this? What do you like about this? Let's see. Are you really happy doing this? And inevitably we discovered that no, he wasn't happy doing that. He was doing that because he thought he needed to do that to be happy. It was like, holy cow. So those 5 years of moving myself from the I know everything about spirituality to being an equal to my son, and at the time to my husband, is what had me realize that there is no way anybody can fully awaken until we commit to seeing everybody as an equal. There can be nobody superior or inferior. That prepared me for the fourth quarter that I'm on right now. Now, talk to me in a couple more years that this is going to keep expanding, because the learnings continue, the deepening continues. The difference, the first half of the journey, I was seeking the truth. The second half of the journey, so far, I'm just living into the truth. I don't seek truth. I know the truth. I now want to express it, extend it, live it. And that is what becomes the stretch for me, is how every day can I be more of the love that I am? Can I extend it more? Can I be more honest? Can I be more, can I be what God created me to be, a bringer of love and light to the planet? So that is the stretch. But this last fifth of the journey, it is really such a beautiful, it's an amazing part of the journey, because it's a recognition that I'm not in charge here. God is in charge. Can you imagine you being comfortable with not being in charge? Egos don't like that. Egos want to be in charge. They definitely love the drama, and being present in the world today, with the awareness that I have now, seeing what is happening, what has been transpiring the last 5 years in my inner journey is such a perfect parallel for what's happening in the outer journey. Because when you understand that as within, so without, everything that is happening outside makes sense. Because the world is run by egos. So when you understand that every single person, no matter what stage of life they're in, no matter what situation they're in, no matter what status they're in, is operating from a level of ego. Is their ego in control, totally in control, or are they beginning to break down the ego and they're already listening to the voice of God and they're teetering between ego and God? Well, those people who are teetering between ego and God tend to be the people who you might consider as spiritual, or maybe the mystical Christians, Buddhists, maybe Hindus. There is a mysticism that is acceptable, but still the ego is operating, but they're not going to go do things that are evil to anybody else. Those who are listening to strictly the ego and live to satisfy the ego's commands, because the ego is a tyrant, as we've seen in so many of these readings that we have done. And it's amazing. We've been doing this. I've been doing this. We're in the 3rd year. I think this is episode 90 or 91. I can't remember. But the ego, when the ego runs the show, it is a tyrant. And you know what's so amazing? When you become really clear that you are love and you are made by God to be loving, you can begin to see the tyrants everywhere and recognize them for what they really are. And most of the tyrants that are in this world, that are running this world, are really sheep's or wolves in sheep's clothing. When we begin to recognize that we are at this stage, at this time, 2023, those who are waking up, those who are at some level of this journey, I'm going to say you have to be in the second half of the journey to really see more clearly. We are witnesses to what is happening in this entire universe. And it is what we're talking about here in this particular section in the Course in Miracles. We started it last week. It's chapter 18, called The Passing of the Dream. The passing of the dream is for those who are realizing what we are souls. We are divine beings. We are pure consciousness. We are God, every single one of us, one with the Father, Mother, God, expressing itself uniquely as an individual aspect of creation for the purpose of being witnesses to the passing of the dream. And what is the dream? Well, that's what the Course in Miracles is so good at helping us understand. The dream that the Course wants us to realize that is passing is this idea of disempowerment. It's a dream. It's made up. That's what a dream means. When you understand A Course in Miracles, you realize that the dream, the illusion, all of that, all it means is you have made something up. So we are letting what we made up pass. It's not working anymore. For a while, it was sustainable when those who operate from their egos and rose to positions of power, because that's what egos do. Only egos love power. Those who are connected with their heart, their soul, you don't need you don't need to go get power. You don't need to be in charge of anything. You are in service. Does that bring you to positions of power? Most likely, yes, but not as often. Because those who want to be in service, they don't need to be acknowledged. They can keep doing what they're doing in the background and they're just as happy. But when the ego needs power, it exerts force, it wants to be acknowledged. It wants to be New York Times bestseller. It needs to be Time Person of the Year. It needs to be the president. It needs to win the race. It needs to be acknowledged. It needs to make a lot of money. It needs so many things to fill it, to feed it, to help it think that it is more than what it actually is. So as we come to the place of complete honesty about where we are on our journey, if you're still looking at the outside world and it scares you, then you don't fully understand the truth of who you are, which is what gets really cemented and grounded as your reality in the second half of your journey. So wherever you are on your journey, we have to come to the point of getting really honest. Is the external, does it still make you scared to think that you're not going to have money? Are you afraid that somebody's going to, run into your car and you're going to get in an accident? Do you leave your house worried that you got to lock it because somebody might get in and steal something? Are you concerned that your lover's going to leave you? Are you worried that your boss is going to fire you? Are you concerned that the stock market's going to crash and you're not going to have money? If those things are still part of your reality and they have the power to affect how you feel, then you're still in the first half of the journey. Your personal dream hasn't, the passing of your dream hasn't happened yet sufficiently so that you can see the dream in the outer world. Until we come to the place that we realize we are the dreamer of the dream. We are the ones making this up. Just as I did when I changed my mind about my parents and I rewrote the story of who I thought I was, instead of thinking of myself according to my father's disappointment that I wasn't a boy, and rewrote that story to, wait a second, I came in a child of God just like everybody else. I'm entitled to have whatever experience I want. And if dad wanted a boy, he's allowed to have that desire. And if he didn't get a boy, well, maybe the next time, maybe his next lifetime, he can have those boys that he wanted, but I needed to be happy being me. Well, until we realize that we are the dreamers of the dream and that we are the ones who get to affect what is happening in the outer world, not the other way around, we haven't moved into the second half. It's in the second half when you can stand and watch the passing of the dream. So what is going on in the outer world is nothing more that those characters that our ego needed to have positions of authority are losing their authority. Well, right now, many of them are fighting to keep their authority, but most of them are going to lose their authority because they've been operating in service to themselves. They think that their happiness is what's important, and they are believing that they are right about how to go about finding their happiness, even if it means hurting another. When you come to the place that you know the truth of who you are a dreamer. You are an imagination station. That's what we all are. Our mind is supposed to imagine and expand the kingdom. When you're imagining, like my little grandson, from a place of innocence, of just pure goodness, pure joy, pure fun, what he is creating is always fun for all of us. There is no just, it's for me. The Legos are mine. There's a little bit of that, but it doesn't take very long before we say, well, here, I want to play with those Legos. I want to build. Come look at this thing that I'm building. And before you know it, he's participating, because his mind is not so solidified in that selfish, egoic way of thinking that happens to the majority of humans who have been on this planet for many incarnations and believe that the outer world is what is real. Come into your truth. Come into the place where you get honest with yourself. Does fear run your life? Then your ego still runs your life. If you're operating with more awareness that you are the creator of your reality, that you can change your beliefs, that you can change your mind about experiences, you begin to gain a confidence that allows you to spend more of your time imagining the world that you prefer. This is why we have to become the change we want to see in the world. We can't expect the world to change and expect people to change if we haven't changed and want different results. That's insanity. Trying to beat a dead horse is insanity. Now, the opportunity is for us to come to the place of such deep inner peace. And you know what's so amazing? Around the world, there are groups of people that are co-creating a new earth, that are doing it in so many different ways. There's co-creators of medical systems, co-creators of education systems, co-creators of even how religion is presented, so that they're taking away the dogma, that they're speaking more to the mystical aspect of it, to the personal experience of it. There are people who've come together and are forming new towns. They're buying up old cities that were, dilapidated and they were affordable, and they're co-creating. They're coming together to build something new. Scott and I are in a group, we call ourselves co-creators as well, New Earth co-creators. And it is all about bringing forth ideas to help expand everybody's potential. That is not the ego. The ego is all about me, selfish, greedy. That's why it gets corrupted. That's why it enters positions of power and money becomes its master. When you're operating from your heart, you cannot get corrupted because you want to give. How do you get corrupted when you're giving, when you're sharing, when you're expanding, extending the kingdom? Not possible. But that is only possible when you make a decision to live from the second half of the journey. When you make a decision to be really honest about how powerful you are. We used our power to feed the lie. We need to use our power to feed the truth, to not only walk it, but talk it, so that we embody it. And in the embodying of the truth, we get to be so clear about who we are that we allow the dream to pass before us. All that stuff that's breaking down in the outer world, all those systems that are crumbling, and they're crumbling because of the greed that it makes them unsustainable. They're crumbling because they do not honor the divinity of every single son and daughter of God. They are crumbling because they allow for the haves and the have-nots. That's not love. That's not godly. That is not at all what was intended when the creative source allowed each and every one of us to have an experience on this beautiful planet. Now, a beautiful thing about the Course in Miracles is it makes it very clear also, unlike religion, God is not going to punish anybody. God is not going to judge anybody, because God is the essence, is the energy, is the breath, it's the pulsing, it's everything that animates each and every one of us. Why is it going to punish itself? It's not. It's acknowledging through each and every one of us that it can go to the darkness. It can absolutely block the light, the truth of itself. It can go as fearful as it wants to. But even if it attempts to do that through any one of us, it can always return to the truth. Every single one of us can change our mind about what we have been believing. Every one of us can forgive ourselves our mistakes. Every one of us can forgive others for doing things without being aware that there was another way. Jesus exampled that for us 2,000 years ago. Course in Miracles, if you are a serious student of truth, and when I say serious, you can't just be dabbling in the curious side of the aisle and trying this modality and trying those crystals and trying this ashram and trying this method this week and that method next week. That's curiosity and it's important. But when you move from curious to serious, and it's not as serious as in, oh my God, it's so serious, like, entering a convent or something, you're going to get all serious. No, we're not going to take the fun away. Serious means you make a decision to be only one way of being. Love, that's it. No matter what, you're going to love it. You do something that is unloving, you forgive yourself immediately and bring that love back. Somebody does something unloving, if you forgive it immediately, you bring that love back. You atone immediately, because you know that when you get yourself back in a loving state, you are expanding the kingdom. You are bringing about correction. You are helping to illuminate the path for others. Today, oh my God, I'm so excited about what's happening. I know that I came to Colorado. Part of it is because I have been called to be here at this time of this great passing of the dream. I am going to be here to help my daughter with my grandson to it's just where it feels like I need to be as the world that we have known as normal falls apart. Be prepared. The next couple of months are going to be really challenging. I'm going to say the next few years are going to be very challenging. Everything that we have believed was good out there in the world is going to actually show its ugly head. The wolves that were in sheep's clothing are being exposed. so that we stop giving our power away, so that we start uniting with one another, helping each other in the brotherhood and the sisterhood, and not give our power to others. No one should be representing us and be a president, especially of this country, if they are not doing what they're doing for the people. Because the people, we, the people, are the ones who need to become more involved in the running of everything. We gave our power away. We got seduced into giving our rights away. We've been following all these laws, rules, and regulations when God gave us one: love your neighbor as yourself. Once you love your neighbor as yourself, you don't need laws, rules, regulations to tell you how to be. The passing of the dream, if you are prepared, is going to be an exhilarating time, because you are going to see how powerful you are. You're going to see that you have strengths, creativity, ideas flowing through you that you did not have before or access to before, because your mind had been conditioned in believing that you knew what you knew, and that's all that you knew, and you didn't really bother to learn anything else because you were so busy trying to keep life going with what little information you actually believed you thought made you so smart. I've been there, done that. I certainly have had my share of arrogance, where I thought I knew so much, but all my arrogance was covering up was my ignorance, because the two sides of the same coin. Everybody who's arrogant can only be arrogant because they're ignorant. Oh my God, when you begin to see the insanity, it's so amazing. But let me get into chapter 18. I'm sorry that I've been on this rambling. I don't know why it happened that way, but it is what it is. So paragraph number 2, because last week we looked at paragraph number 1, and it starts paragraph number 1 in section number 1. Section 1 is the substitute reality. The ego has substituted reality, and we have bought into that. And the first sentence in paragraph 1 said, to substitute is to accept instead. We have accepted the ways of the ego instead of the ways of God. And that choices that we made are now coming to roost. So basically what is happening is choosing to let the ego be in charge, believing that there was powers outside of us that were in charge, that knew more than we knew. All of that has created a world that is falling apart because it's not sustainable. Greed does not sustain things. Now, what we're doing is we're learning what the truth is. So in paragraph number 2, the Holy Spirit never uses substitutes. God doesn't need a substitute. God is love no matter what. God is loving for everything, for all beings, no matter what. There is no substitute in what love is all about. Where the ego perceives one person as a replacement for another, the Holy Spirit sees them joined and indivisible. This is a powerful line. The ego uses people, discards people. I promote you. I get what I get out of you when I'm done. And I'm making all the money that I need to make from you. I get rid of you. I marry you. I get what I need out of you. Once I'm not getting what I want out of you, I can discard you. As long as I'm getting something, the ego has all kinds of replacements if I'm not getting what I need from you. That is the world that the ego has created, where for a while, people could stay at their jobs and people stayed there for 40 years and retired, and you felt valued. Then all of a sudden things with technology began speeding up, and people were replaceable. And all of a sudden, just marriages falling apart, things happening in the world. Not that they weren't happening before, but it's been accelerating. The reason it's accelerating is because the dream is about to pass over. We are about to let go of what was insane before, as we are shifting towards a new way of being, a way that allows for us to be in a state of recognition that we want to help, support, uplift one another. So the ego is all about replacing. I got a substitute. You don't do your part. I'll find somebody else who will, and they'll probably do it for less. The Holy Spirit on the other side joins people together. We come together to support one another. We don't need to have a story. We don't need to have a resume to find out whether or not you are somebody that I'm going to trust or not. You automatically can feel the other person. They begin to speak. You hear, is their walk and their talk, is it congruent? That's sufficient for you. You can give somebody a loan because you can feel their sincerity. You don't need their credit score. You don't need to find out their job history to do something like that. You feel from the heart because you come together and you're hearing inspiration that has you be in service to one another. All right. Ego is not about that. You want to, the whole credit score system. By the way, there are two sides to everything. Credit score system could be a wonderful thing. Could be a wonderful thing to help uplift those who need the extra credit score. However, the ego uses that as a way to beat people up. Oh, you don't meet this standard? Well, then you're not going to get this. I'm going to charge you more. Why do we charge more to the people who need the credit the most? Why is it that we charge the highest interest rate to those who are at the lowest point in their credit score? They're the ones who need the most help, the ones who have the most credit, the ones who have the most money. Shouldn't they pay more? But see, the ego has it all backwards. It rewards those who it believes it can get something from, and punishes those that it doesn't feel like it can get something. Holy Spirit would never do that. Holy Spirit is about treating everybody with equality, treating everybody with equanimity, treating everybody as the holy brother and sister of God that we are. That is what I learned when my son began to do his drug journey. I had to get off of my mom pedestal and meet him at my holy brother, holy sister pedestal. Well, not pedestal. We had to get off the pedestals. We had to become equals so that we could begin to talk honestly about what was going on, so that we could share our experiences, so that I could hear what was going on, so that I could be of service with my knowledge, so that he could be of service to me with his knowledge. And that was not possible if we didn't see each other as equals. That's what the Holy Spirit does. It joins us and it makes us indivisible, because then we have a common goal, which is caring about each other's hearts, no longer about each other's egos, making me look good so that the neighbors don't think I'm a bad mother because I've got a son that's doing drugs. When I got off of that egoic pedestal, I was able to hear the pain that my son had. And you know where some of that pain came from me. As a mother, I had put such expectations on him that he was trying to live up to, and he couldn't meet some of my expectations, the teacher's expectations, the county's expectations, that in not being able to live up and thinking he was a disappointment to me, that pain was unbearable. He had to numb that pain. Well, how else was he going to numb it if not with drugs? I could drink alcohol legally, so I could go get my margaritas. I could go shopping and numb my inadequacies as a woman, as a mother, as a whatever. What was he going to do? Well, he had to resort to all that he could do. And that's when I realized, you know what? These drugs that you're taking to numb your pain, your inadequacy, that is the most loving thing you can do to yourself. How crazy that we make that illegal. How crazy that we do that. So I let him do whatever drugs he wanted to do, as long as he made me a promise. He took the drugs to feel high, to expand himself out of his suffering. When the drugs were off and he came into his lows, we talked about them. Where did this come from? What beliefs do you have? Just as I changed my beliefs about my father, I wanted him to change his beliefs about me. I wanted him to have a new story. And it took 4 years of me gently, lovingly staying with him at his pace, knowing that maybe every day was the last day that I would see that child, but knowing that we were eternally forever united by the Holy Spirit, because we're all one consciousness. As my mind was accepting our eternalness, I was able to be more present with him in the now moment, day by day, as he shared his pain. And every time he shared his pain, I had to acknowledge, oh my God, I helped teach you that. Please forgive me. I did not know what I was doing. I was under the illusion that I had been conditioned into. It was quite the journey, but I'm so grateful that I had it, because it definitely helped me become who I am today, as one who can walk the talk with the confidence that I do, because I see how it has changed so many lives when we apply these teachings. So sentence number 3 says, this is the word he is talking about the Holy Spirit. He does not judge between them, knowing they are one. Holy Spirit, when you listen to the voice for God, there is no judgment of anybody. You know, as I'm watching the passing of the dream, as I'm watching some of these tyrants, these presidents, these heads of corporations, these self-appointed people like the Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum, or I forget the guy's name, how to pronounce it, the head of the WHO, the World Health Organization, as I watch these leaders, what an interesting word to call them themselves, CEOs of corporations like pharmaceutical companies, and I see what they're doing. I see what their egos are doing. I see the level of total and complete double standards, that they want something for them, but they want something for somebody else. People who've not been elected, who think that they get to dictate the medical, what everybody else is supposed to take, that we're supposed to take jabs because they make a profit from it, because they worked out a deal with the government on it. When we don't take into consideration the soul, the being, each individual, we are operating from this sense of self importance. It's all pure ego. The Holy Spirit doesn't see that, knows everybody as one. So I'm watching all these people going, brothers, most of them tend to be males, brothers, and a few sisters. You're no different than I am. I am not going to do what you are telling me to do if I don't hear God telling me to do it. And I don't need to judge any of these people. I have compassion for every single one of them. They're playing some pretty amazing roles in this drama that is helping us see that it is time to let this dream pass. Those who have ears to hear, those who have the eyes to see, can see that some want to play the game of I'm going to call it cops and robbers. Some want to be in charge of everybody else, and some want others to be in charge of them. Those who want to play the victim role, those who want to play the bully roles, they are going to continue to live out that timeline, because we are creators of our own reality. Those who are done with operating in haves and have-nots and want to move to the game of equality, of equanimity, operate with God's truth in love and in service to all of humanity, we are going to have that timeline. We are bifurcating. The passing of the dream is that you better know which side you are going to be on when the time comes that there is going to be a split in timelines. This is one of those amazing things that I had no idea was possible until I began to have my own relationship with God. When you begin to connect with God, when you begin to hear truth for yourself, you begin to be prepared for what's next. When your mind is all about the ego, you're only focused in what's here, you're only in survival mode, you are only doing what is in front of you. Once you widen back and you can see the bigger picture, you see that we are part of a massive universe. This is just a little speck in a massive universe. This is not all that there is. What is happening here is going to have an effect in the entire universe. Why? Because when you understand the cycles of weather, the cycles of the human body, the cycles of anything, just pay attention to cycles, you realize that we are completing a cycle. That's why Jesus gave us the Course in Miracles over 50 years ago and put chapter 18 saying the passing of the dream. Because it was coming, we were moving towards this cycle. We're upon it now. This decade, 2020, is a decade for all of us to see clearly. Are you ready to have the vision? 2020 vision, 2020 decade. 2023, we still have 7 more years to go. This entire decade is going to be the decade that we're going to see the passing of the dream for those who are going to move on to the next cycle. Are you going to be part of that? There are so many teachers out there that are teaching about timelines. I don't focus on teaching those things. I know that that's true for me, and I know what's going to happen for me because I'm in contact with my creative source. So I'm very clear about what's next for me. But my work is to help people open up their eyes. I help them question their thoughts, their beliefs. I help them understand their ego. That's what my work is, not the sexy work of spirituality, of teaching people about meditation and teaching about transcending, blah, 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 and moving into higher dimensions. That's all great and wonderful. And I know that that's my reality. But until we see our ego, we cannot understand the truth of who we are, because our ego is the block to that truth. And we don't need to try and figure out who God is. That happens on its own when you begin to look at the lies of the ego. And that is what is so important for us to become honest about and recognize that we cannot possibly be right about everything. We cannot possibly be right about pretty much anything. That level of humbleness, that level of really becoming clear that there is more to be known, is what brings us into A Course in Miracles with curiosity that eventually allows us to go into the deeper parts of the teachings that frees our souls, frees us from suffering, frees us from fears, moves us into the realm of service to the greater good of all. Let me share the next sentence here. 3, he does not, well, I already read that one, but I'll read it again. He does not judge between them, knowing they are one. The Holy Spirit never judges. Being united, they are one because they are the same. My son and I, we were the same. Those people that I work with, the teacher or the students that I work with, the people that I get to have the honor to be their coach, we're the same. I tell them all the time, I don't know more than you. I'm just sharing what I do know from personal experience, but it's the same knowledge that you have. So treating others as equals, I don't look at teachers as being anybody above me. They're all equals. They may know more than I do because they practice that more than I do. They've experienced something that God has shown them that I haven't seen. I respect that, but we're all the same. We're all equal brothers and sisters, all holy brothers and sisters. Substitution is clearly a process in which they are perceived as different. When the ego begins to substitute people, that's when differences really begin to take hold. One would unite and the other separate. Nothing can come between what God has joined and what the Holy Spirit sees as one. But everything seems to come between the fragmented relationships the ego sponsors to destroy. It is absolutely amazing how the ego has been the ruler of this world. Course in Miracles says that the ego made this world, and the ego has made a mess of this world. It has made a world of divisiveness, a world of pollution, a world of rape, of hunger. How can we possibly let a child go hungry? Any brother or sister go hungry? But we have allowed these things to happen because we have substituted the voice for God with the voice for ego, the voice that inflates us instead of the voice that makes us all one and the same. The passing of the dream means that we've got to get clear that if we have any ideas where we're better or lesser than others, we've got to come clean with those thoughts. We need to acknowledge those fears. We've got to talk about these things that have made us separate from one another. We have been so conditioned to see each other as different by skin color, by gender, by sexuality, by religion. It's time to put all those childish games aside. Stop seeing differences and focus on that, and instead begin to ask the questions: where are we the same? Instead of, why do you like this president versus that president, this party versus that party? Instead of going to the side so that we can solidify the things that are different, let's come to the middle. Do we want a free country? Do we want to experience ourselves in this country in equality? Do we want to live by the things that are stated in the Constitution? Do those things matter? How do we make that happen? But the reason we cannot operate in oneness is because the mind needs to be right. The ego mind needs to be right. And when we stand righteous about my way versus your way, what we are actually doing is perpetuating the very divisiveness that keeps the dream of separation active. The time is now. The dream is passing. For those with eyes to see and ears to hear, are you prepared to humble yourself and admit that you've been using your power to contribute to a world that is just, it's become a mess? Yes, you contributed to it. Well, then let's work together and co-create to do something together that is in service to the greater good of all. If you've been paying taxes and your money's been used for wars, you've been contributing to hurting others. If you have been, being a good person and filing your taxes the way that you're supposed to, and filling out your forms the way you're supposed to, and following the rules and the laws and the regulations because you were scared that if not, you'd end up in jail or something could happen to you, they'd send the government's people after you, and you out of fear were compliant, you've been contributing to this. If you voted for somebody and that person did not, let's say that they did not get elected, or they did get elected and you never checked up to see what they were doing, and you just 4 years later went back because that's your party, you vote for them again, and you were not participating and really looking at what was going on. I didn't. When I realized how complicit I was in the creation of a world full of pollution, full of horrors, I contributed to that. Not to blame myself, but to go, wow, I am so powerful. I gave those people a lot of power. Let me pull it back. Let me begin to take responsibility for what I want to see in the world. Let me get educated. Let me really find out what's going on. Let me study this Constitution. Let me feel into what is of God and what is of ego. And little by little, my time is spent now in listening to the voice for God and making sure that that is the voice that I make all of my decisions from. Not very popular in the world yet. Some of my ideas, some of the way that I do things, the world thinks I'm crazy, but they thought the same thing of Jesus. I only listen to the voice of my Father, Mother, God. I call it Father, just, it feels okay, feels good. But I know that it is the voice of love. I listen to that voice because that is the only voice that my peace comes from. I know that I'm eternal. So this temporary life experience that I have, I'm not attached to this life experience, but I am committed to using it responsibly in service to the greater good of all. So let me stop right here. We completed paragraph 2. It's so hard to get through these beautiful teachings when, oh my God, so much wants to be transmitted through me. So unmute yourselves if you got a nugget from this, if there was anything anything that you want to share. I would love to hear, what did you receive from this? I know we had a couple of people who came and went. I know schedules are such that happens from time to time, but unmute yourselves. I'd love to hear from you. Scott, are you trying to unmute yourself? Let me see if that helps.
Unmute. There we go.
There we go. How are
Wow,
you?
what a wonderful talk. I'm great, actually. Definitely, going through, I guess, some things that you've already gone through a little bit too in the past with your son, which really resonated with me. My brother's been in the hospital for 10 days and finally got out because of alcoholism. He detoxed really bad and pretty much lost his mind. They had to strap him down and to a bed and that. And I'm going through that hard thing about, where you were talking about, the timeline shifting, because he's still in that victim mentality. And I stayed with him for the last year at my mom's trying to help him quit, because I was able to learn how to do that. And because my whole family are all addicts and, in alcoholism, gambling, food, all that type of stuff. So I'm having a real dilemma right now with, because he wants me to come back home because he's really having a hard time trying to stop, and I'm like, you know, do I keep on put myself out there, and because he definitely has abused my help, you know, that I see now. So I'm trying to be in that loving space and that, but I don't know, you know, it's a point where when do you know when to stop giving or loving a person that, you know, I've known my whole life and I cared so deeply about, but
Well, it's very
doesn't seem to
simple.
want to help himself, you know what I'm saying?
It's really simple, Scott. When you follow the teachings of the Course in Miracles, the Course in Miracles says, do what feels joyful. Do what feels in alignment with you. And if helping your brother, if it brings you joy, if you enjoy being of service and you can do it without expectation, keep doing it. If, however, there's something else you'd rather do with your time that would be more fun, that would be more enjoyable for you, you have to make the decision to see him as a powerful creator, creating whatever it is that he wants to experience. One of the really challenging things in the process of awakening is that the Course in Miracles does not want us to look at each other as victims, because we're not. Everybody is at one level creating exactly what we want to experience because we can. And if he is still needing to have that experience, then that's part of his journey. And you need to respect that he will hit his bottom whenever he hit his bottom. And moving yourself to a place of seeing him as equally as capable as you to make a decision when he's done, as you were when you were done, will allow you to see him as empowered, see him as utilizing this experience called life, this lifetime, for the lessons that he needs to get. You stand clear as an example for him. You know, brother, I've been in your shoes. I've been able to work through that. When you're ready, let me know. I'm willing to help you, but I'm not going to do this if it's not fun for me. And it's not fun right now doing what I'm doing, watching you continue to do, because now it feels like you're just taking advantage of me, and I don't want to be taken advantage of. I want to be helping somebody who literally wants what I have to offer. So call me when you're ready. If you can divorce yourself from the idea that you are supposed to be, that you have what he needs for him to get better, if you can divorce yourself from thinking that you are that one that has that knowledge, that the only one that has that for him, you will actually humble yourself and say, God, clearly I'm not the one that's going to help him. Find him the one that's going to help him. Use me and let me help somebody else in a different way. And it may not be in the way that you might think, but we are bifurcating. We are shifting timelines. And it's all by frequency. Those who want to operate at the lower frequency of fear, of disempowerment, of victims and bullies are going to be experiencing that pretty soon. They're going to see themselves, if not already, that's what they're going to be surrounded with. Those who are shifting to the timeline of collaboration and cooperation, we are seeing that we are surrounded by that. Let that be the reality that you prefer to have. Let the dream of disempowerment pass away and move towards where you are feeling that you've got something to contribute it, and it's fun and easy to share it. That's it. Keep it.
Thank you, Laina. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I get the part. It's that old conditioning and programming that it's fun to learn new things, but it's definitely difficult to unlearn things, and that's definitely a process I'm going through where, everybody's dependent, or at least I think, my ego tells me, or that I felt that, I've always been dependable, and when everybody needed me, I was there. And, but the thing is that it didn't seem to help, because it was just like a crutch for them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I totally,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. And
So
it's
I get that guilty feeling that I'm not being a good brother or a good son, because I'm not letting them take and take and take, you know, and it isn't fun. And
Well,
that's where I have that conflict inside me, is where, you know, I got to do what's best for me. And that's where I'm learning how to love myself more, you
yes.
know.
And that's one of the beautiful things about the Course in Miracles. It really is there to help us, to support us through that process of letting go of that guilt. And it takes time. It takes time. But I'm so glad that you came to this conversation. Let me check in with others, and then we will.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh no, good to have you here. We'll definitely have to connect. Anybody else? I know quite a few have already dropped off, so I know we're going a little longer than normal. Hello, Christo.
Yes. Well, you know, for me, it's a great reminder that, you know, some things that my mind's involved with are things that I feel I need to go through and deal with. And sometimes I don't feel comfortable in my body unless I find the joy in it. And for me, I'm being reminded, you know, there's joy in everything. You can find the joy in doing things, even if they're difficult things, you know. And it can be just a simple thing of taking deep breaths and taking a step back to get a different perspective of what you're doing. And voila, there's the joy. There's the joke. Crack a joke in what you're doing, you know. And so that's, for me, is a big reminder. Find the joy. And when you mentioned that, I'm reminded that, and I usually do that, but sometimes I forget that I make things a chore as opposed to just find the joy and hum your way through it, you know.
I love that. I love that. You know, and when Spencer was going through some of his darkest days with drugs and some of the things that were happening, because of course his behavior was so erratic, and he was doing some things that were sometimes very hurtful, physically hurtful to others, dangerous to himself and others. I had to find the joy in that. I had to find, you know what, he came home tonight. Let me find the joy in that. Let me be joyful. Let me be grateful. Let me find gratitude, appreciation in whatever little thing I could do. He woke up in the morning and I got to make him breakfast, where before I might have been, oh my God, I got to make you breakfast. You're a teenager, make your own breakfast. No, I got to make breakfast. I got to do the laundry. Wow, I got to wash clothes for my son again. And I found the simplest little things to be joyful about. And it activated my sense of gratitude. And more importantly, it activated for me an appreciation for the role that I was playing. And to be very clear, there were things that I was not going to do. I absolutely was not going to participate in. And I was comfortable stating that, because what I was willing to do, I was so joyful in finding joy in, finding just gratitude for, it's just a freaking role. At the end of the day, we're all playing roles in these movies. Everybody's a character in this movie. And we think we're responsible for this one, that one, or the other. Nobody's responsible for anybody. Yes, when they're little ones, we take on the responsibility as the adult to protect them, because they're still little, they don't know the ways of the world. But everybody is an equal soul, just as powerful, knowledgeable, connected to God. And that's where we have to acknowledge the power of each being, so we stop thinking that we know more, or that somebody knows more than we do. Thank you for that comment. Appreciate it. All right.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. So grateful. And we will see you next week. We will be here next weekend. Share this with your friends. If you enjoyed this episode, go to my YouTube, Laina Orlando, on YouTube, and you can watch all the other episodes and all the other things that are coming. So I'm going to start doing a few more things. But anyways, goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. So grateful for you.